To yet another video. This is your boy Willie Does Wrestling, and down below, it is making his first appearance on the Willie Does Wrestling channel. Actually, no, he appeared in the Backlash review last
Yeah,
night, but it is James of Dataway Show. James, how are you doing?
doing good, man. Just trying to get better. I'm excited for tonight's show, so I'm just getting it in, man. Just grinding.
Yeah, no, definitely. The grind is always there. But we thought we'd do this special video for you guys since the Hell in a Cell 2019 video did so well. I figured I'd get someone else on here to talk about SmackDown Live in 2016 to 2017 because I feel like that time on SmackDown was definitely like the best era for WWE back then because that was
Oh,
when they did the brand split and they introduced the new belts and blah blah blah. I don't know. And that was
it's
when I
good.
first started watching wrestling too. So
I I love like you put it to the point where I mean you took the words out of my mouth with that one. Like I felt like Raw back like SmackDown back then 2016-17 was like the time of Undertaker Edge, AJ Styles, if I'm correct. Yeah, that's at the time like Roman Reigns was out of there. So Roman Reigns, because with the leukemia thing, so he was out, if I'm correct.
no, 2016 Roman was on Raw.
Yeah,
You're
yeah, yeah.
thinking
2016, yeah.
2018. Yeah.
2016, yeah, Roman was on Raw. And I think like that's when like it was good. Like the titles wasn't unified. If there
Yeah.
was, you couldn't really tell it was unified. So I just felt like I just felt like it could have been way more. I just when they had the titles back there 2016 17, it was amazing. When they had the titles not unified, it was good. They had a real brand split to where Raw can't go on any Raw, no Raw superstars cannot go on SmackDown, and no SmackDown superstars cannot go on Raw. But it's like
Yeah.
now this the rules get bended so many times, it gets like, what's the point of us doing the draft?
Yeah,
Like
I
the
I I
draft,
liked the draft in 2016, like you said, because Raw stays on Raw, SmackDown stays on SmackDown. Free agents, which there barely wasn't any free agents, like let's say a John Cena or something, he could pop up wherever the fuck.
yeah,
But it's like, yeah, no, 2016 I think got the better end of the stick because let's talk about the draft. Dean Ambrose, they only had one world champion at the start of the WWE draft. That was Dean Ambrose. He
yeah,
was the current WWE champion. Then he got drafted to SmackDown, and that was how we got the Universal titles because Raw needed a world title. Sound
yeah,
fucking familiar with 2023? Um,
yeah,
but um, I liked the fact that they had two different rosters, so that way, hey, if you like this person, you could only check out Raw, and if you like
yeah.
this person, you can only watch them on Tuesdays. Actually, SmackDown was on Tuesdays at this point.
Yeah, I remember that. It was on Tuesdays.
Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan were the general managers as well. They
Yeah,
did a kick-ass job.
Daniel Bryan did a good job. Daniel Bryan surprised me when I found out he was the manager. I was like, damn, because they really had managers. Like how it is now is no managers, but back then they had managers, and it was like it was a good time. Like even like JoJo said, SmackDown Twister was fantastic. 16 and 17. That's where you could really like you couldn't complain about it because it's like SmackDown. You had the feuds. When it came down to the feuds, they were just good.
Oh
You had
yeah.
Dean Ambrose. I felt like WWE did. I feel like WWE did Dean Ambrose dirty with that because I just felt like he was a champion. You could have built some hype off of that, and I felt at that time they wasn't really doing him justice. Like they were giving right like feuds, but they wasn't really to the point that you could be like, okay, you're doing this man justice. Because Dean Ambrose was a good wrestler. I mean,
Oh
he
yeah.
had. I like his. From a person to go to the Shield, then go to his own thing. He did his own thing with the gimmick. He had the little lunatic thing.
The
Reminded
lunatic
me kind
fringe.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, it reminded me like of a ECW type of gimmick. So I just felt like I liked Dean Ambrose at that time.
The
Even with
feuds, like the feuds were definitely great. Like, I liked AJ Styles versus Dean Ambrose. That
Man,
feud was absolutely sick. AJ and Cena in the lead up to SummerSlam was on SmackDown in 2016.
man,
They
that
did so good.
that was
Um, The Miz versus Dolph Ziggler.
yeah. See,
Oh,
speaking of that, like Dolph Ziggler, how he gets treated now is really just, in my opinion, messed up. Because I feel like back then, even now, Dolph Ziggler is a legend.
oh
You
yeah,
know, he was never one of those that had a problem with putting any superstar over because that's his job. He's gonna do what he got to do. He do what he do what the boss say he does. But I just felt like during that time when him and AJ Styles were going back and forth, that was, oh my gosh. Dolph Ziggler knows how to deliver on the mic. He's good in the ring. AJ Styles, they were going back. That feud was good. Even with the John Cena and AJ Styles segment, that was just, it was amazing. I couldn't say anything. It was just amazing because it's like,
yeah,
in the fact that he won that match, AJ Styles won that match, that was a good booking by WWE. You know, you had John Cena, and that's the thing. John Cena is the same way. He's a legend. He had no problem putting over any superstar that deserved it. So I feel like when that
yeah,
feud happened with those two feuds that you named, those really just put superstar at a sky level to a point that SmackDown was everybody want to watch it. I didn't even think people wanted to watch Raw at that time because SmackDown was better during 2016.
definitely.
So,
Yeah, and here's another like feud or storyline that I liked in 2016 for SmackDown. Randy Orton and the Wyatt family. That
ooh,
shit, that shit was awesome when they first started as rivals, and then Kane was sort of helping Randy against Bray and Luke Harper,
yeah,
R.I.P. But then when Randy Orton RKO'd Kane, I was like, "Oh, what the fuck?" And then Randy Orton started coming out with the Wyatt family, and I was like, "Oh shit, this is gonna be like the most fire stable of all time."
that was, oh my gosh. See, Willie, that's crazy sad because like I'm a Bray Wyatt fan, you feel me? But I
Yeah,
like Bray Wyatt back then, like 2016, 17. Bray Wyatt was going to the moon. You feel me? I
yeah,
didn't really like the Fiend. It was cool, but it was just too repetitive. You see him all the time. But
I
I
feel
felt
that.
like, but with 2016, 17, Bray Wyatt, he was over. He had a huge pop every time. I remember
He was the
watching.
world champion.
And I feel like WWE could have did so many things with that. They could have had him be a champion. I'll say for a couple months or so, longer than that. Then have a stable with him and Randy Orton. Then have Randy Orton take the belt off of Bray. You know, because Randy Orton starts waking up, realizing like, why am
Yeah,
I? It's like there's like a like why am I not in this situation? Because you know Randy Orton is known for backstabbing people. That's his gimmick. So
yeah.
that would have been perfect if they did that. But the way it ended, I didn't mind it. You know, they had Kane trying to help out Randy Orton. Randy Orton RKO's Kane, and he joins him. I felt like they could have did better with the stable with Bray Wyatt in them. Just having Randy Orton there, they could have had that stable last for like I say a month or two, make it a little longer. Then it seemed did have it in how they had a bloodline. They have it to where they had Randy Orton be like, you know what? I'm waking up realizing why am
They
I
did
helping?
do that. They did do that.
They did. Damn, I couldn't remember. It's so long ago, man. It's
Yeah, no, that's fine, but yeah, no, Randy Orton started waking up, and Bray was, like, world champion during this time, and
man.
Randy Orton was like, "I'm taking your fucking belt because I'm
I,
nobody's servant," you know?
that yeah, there you go. Yeah, I somewhat remember that then. Yeah, because I remember they had the feud, and I remember like when Randy Orton finally did. I was like, man, Randy Orton. I was like, damn, Randy. I love Randy Orton. He's been my favorite since he first went ruthless aggression days. So
Yeah, he's definitely up there. Which version of Orton did y'all enjoy more, '09, '16, or '05? '09. His heel days is in '09, man.
oh 09, oh 09, he was just a savage, man. Like when he punted, oh my gosh, when he be punting people, I was like, oh my god, I didn't like him. But then I was like, why is he so like? Why is he punting people, taking them out? Like he was a savage. He was a savage. Savage.
Definitely.
Randy was
Uh,
sharp.
yeah. But, Yeah, I didn't. I liked the Bray, Randy, and Luke Harper storyline. Think that maybe they should have pushed Luke Harper a little more.
Oh
Like
yeah,
WrestleMania 33, we should have had Bray, Randy, and Luke Harper in there because it seemed like they were going to push Luke Harper when he was breaking away from the Wyatt family, and
yeah.
then Vince all of a sudden just was like, "Nah, we're not going to do that." And I think that really hurt because I think maybe a triple threat would have been better, especially if Luke ate the pin at WrestleMania 33 and it just continued with Bray and Randy feuding or whatever that was. Um, but another thing, the titles in SmackDown were absolutely sick. You had the WWE Championship, you
Yeah.
had the Intercontinental, and then 2 new titles, the SmackDown Tag Team titles and the SmackDown Women's Championship. How did you feel about them having new belts?
During 2016 and 17 with those titles, it was amazing. I wish it was like that today because it would solve a lot of problems that we all know, that we see on Twitter, that we all know of. I ain't gonna say the name because we talking about 2016, 17, but it is what it is. But back then, with those titles, it was amazing because nobody could have complained. We couldn't complain. We couldn't sit here and be like, why is this person holding 2 titles? If they did hold 2 titles, they still have belts to earn. Those are the
Yeah.
people belts to earn. Why? It was just amazing. And at that time, it was good. It was good. It was amazing. Women's belt, because I feel like nowadays with the women's tag team belt, it's trash. It got no value. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
back then, with the women's divas belt, the single divas belt, you had all these good wrestlers at that time that could come and compete for it. And if they won, if they whoever gets that belt, they were gonna go skyrocket. I mean, we seen during 2016, 17. I can't necessarily remember most of those women in the era of 2016, 17, but because it wasn't that much at that time. It wasn't that
There was
much wrestling.
Becky, Alexa, Carmella, a ton of those people. Like, and they were
I
getting
say
pushed to the moon.
they were. I would say Alexa Bliss, because Alexa Bliss was a good champion when she won that belt.
She
She was
was
a
a
good
good
champion.
heel too.
Good heel. I just didn't like what they did with her and Bray Wyatt. It just didn't connect. Because after that, she went downhill. I just felt like her
Yeah.
being by herself was better. She had the godness gimmick. Then she had the little somewhat evil type of gimmick. Not fully Bray Wyatt and her gimmick, but just her
J-
gimmick off
just
alone.
her, yeah.
It was good. She's a good wrestler. It's just they not get. I could say the same thing for a lot of wrestlers nowadays, but that'd be for another discussion. But yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
no. I mean, you want to talk about wrestlers that were good on SmackDown in 2016 that are not doing very good nowadays.
No.
Baron Corbin. Baron
Oh,
Corbin was so fire back in the day. He was Mr. Money in the Bank, and then they foiled that run, and now Baron Corbin's just like a jobber, and he's doing nothing. He had
he's
everything it took to be a world champion.
he's basically just putting over wrestlers right now. That's all he's doing now. And I feel like Baron Corbin is a workhorse just as much as Seth Rollins is. You could put Baron Corbin in there just like you could put Dolph Ziggler, Seth Rollins, and Baron Corbin. Those 3 people are workhorses just like any other people. But when it came down to them, they had no problem putting nobody over. They didn't have no problem. They didn't complain about it. I feel like with Baron Corbin, when he had a lone wolf, prior to NXT, oh my God, NXT TakeOver, when Triple H was running it, Baron
Yeah,
Corbin was one of those. He had a good ass run, and I was like, when I found out he went to either SmackDown or Raw, if I'm correct, during that time, or he got picked called up.
you got called up. Yeah,
Yeah, he got caught up. I was like, okay, what are you guys gonna do with Baron Corbin? If so, do not mess up his gimmick. And what did they do? He had a good run at first. He was beating everybody. I'm like, okay, they trying to push him to the moon. I respect that because Baron Corbin's a good wrestler. Then they mess him up. Then they have him start going with these feuds that didn't make sense. Then they had him start losing a lot of matches. I was just like, why? Why are we
yeah.
why are we and WWE's known for being 50-50. They always mess up with gimmicks. They always ruin the gimmicks and try to bring it back. But when they try to bring back the gimmick, They tried to do it their way. So I just didn't like what they did with Baron Corbin. Even though Corbin, everybody say Corbin, like a lot of people like to say Corbin is not really it no more. He still got a chance to like make a big push. He just needs to get that right gimmick, the lone wolf gimmick. I want the lone wolf gimmick to come back, not this gimmick. So
Not the casino gimmick. Here's someone in 2016 that got absolutely, like, fumbled. Heath Slater, when he did the free agent thing, he wasn't drafted, and then he went over and he was like, "Hey, I didn't get drafted anywhere, I need a contract." So then when they booked the SmackDown tag team titles, they said to Heath Slater, "Hey, the only way you can get a contract here is if you win this whole tournament." So he teamed up with Rhino, and then it had a massive payoff. Heath and Rhino being the first tag champs. I think that was a good story.
that I agree with that. That was a good story. I feel like Heath Slater, he's underrated. A lot of people overlook him because that gimmick that Vince had him do back in when it was him, Drew, that little rock and roll group.
3MB.
3MB, I didn't like that. But then after when they had Heath Slater do his own thing, team up with Rhino, I was like, you guys could cook up with this. And they fumbled it. WWE always find a way to fumble it. I was just like, this man won the tournament. Him and Rhino became champions. What are you guys gonna do with it then? They didn't
Yeah.
do nothing with it. I just felt like Heath Slater's a good wrestler. Man, I think during that time, Drew McIntyre was in SmackDown, right? Or we wasn't.
During that time, Drew was still released.
Yeah, I remember
Drew
that.
was still fired, yeah.
I heard about Drew. I heard of that, and people still wanted Drew to come back because Drew was just psychopath, the Scottish psychopath. I'm all in for that one. That man was different. So
Definitely. What are some other good feuds and moments from SmackDown in 2016? Let's talk about James Ellsworth and when he was getting pushed to the fucking moon. That whole story with AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose. I mean, this man was a top merch seller at one point. People would
oh,
show up to shows with that like black shirt with James Ellsworth's face on it. And I mean,
they made fun of that. I know for surely. So I know back then they just say he had no chin. So it's like Eric, like anytime AJ Styles got in an argument with James Ellsworth, it'll be like, he said he got no chin. Ellsworth just say something back to him. I remember one time Dean Ambrose was the ref, and he purposely. I was like, oh,
yeah.
man. At that time, I mean, James Ellsworth was a good wrestler. Just to have somebody for gimmicks and shit, that was a good person right there. It's just like after the 2016, 17, they just all just left. Everybody went to go do their own thing. It was just that's when WWE somewhat started to go down, but try to pick back up. And
Mhm.
that's when we had all these brands come up, other wrestling indies and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's fucking crazy. They had a ton of they were pushing a decent amount of people on the SmackDown roster in 2016 too that are just like nowhere nowadays. Like you got Apollo Crews and
Mm.
Natalia's here and there nowadays.
Here and there.
Um Kalisto was getting a decent enough push back in the day.
He was.
Um there was a tag team with Zack Ryder and Mojo Rawley, the Hype Bros. They were decent,
Mm. Zack Ryder.
but it's
Zack Ryder deserved that push, man. When they let go of Zack Ryder, I was like, what are y'all doing?
I was so mad. And the titles were so prestigious on SmackDown too, the Intercontinental Championship. I mean, The Miz is run with that belt. I remember talking smack. The Miz and Daniel Bryan and The Miz had that huge shoot promo on D-Bry.
Oh my gosh. That feud was good. Uh, that feud was good. The Miz and Daniel Bryan, because the Miz had a point there. He was like, the Miz never got injured. He hasn't got injured. He always been good.
Yeah.
It just, Daniel Bryan tried to say basically on Daniel Bryan's point, trying to say, well, you're boring. And then the Miz said, I could be boring, but I still do my job. You get injured. I haven't got injured. And I just felt like when it comes down to it between Daniel Bryan and Miz, I'd rather have the Miz for long term because it's like he's not getting injured. I mean, he's holding his own. He like I said, he has no problem with losing matches if he has to. He's a good champion. I mean, when the Miz was Intercontinental Champion, he was making a lot of moves with that belt. He was doing a lot of things. They had him at first like cheating to win, but then he started winning by himself, and it was like the Miz. A lot of people like to discredit Miz, and I just feel like we got to give Miz his flowers too. That man was in 2016, 17 days, and he's still relevant today. Got his
Yeah,
own show. He's doing things on Raw. I love the Miz. You know, I just felt like even when the Miz went against John Cena, he held his own too. I mean, man, I mean, him and John Morrison teaming up. It was just Miz always been relevant. Same thing with Daniel Bryan. I just felt like they didn't know what to do with Daniel Bryan. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do. So start
yeah,
to see that.
definitely. Another highlight from SmackDown back then was the 2016 Survivor Series match.
Mm,
That one was sick. Um, it went like an hour, I think that match did, but
yeah.
I mean, when Dean Ambrose from SmackDown like reuniting with Roman and Seth from Raw and doing that triple powerbomb to AJ Styles to help that storyline. Oh, I mean, man,
Amazing.
that was so good.
It was amazing, man. Just seeing like a real, not real brand split, like we said, a real brand split, having SmackDown go against Raw, and then they ended up because that's when Roman Reigns, they end up teaming up again to take down AJ, and it was just like it was a good match. Like you could tell, like everybody was like invested into it compared to
Mhm.
compared to how nowadays it is. Compared to nowadays, it's not like that no more. It's not a real brand split. You could do what
No.
Drake want in 2023. But regardless, we got free agents going to different shows and people still going to other people's shows, other people still going to other people's shows. It's not the same how it used to be. So I
Y
just feel like
yeah,
2016
no.
Survivor Series was different.
I liked it back then, like Dylan said, in the chat, it was just like, back in that day, it was an actual split, you
Yeah.
know? You stay in your show, and if you're feuding with someone else on the other show, you guys don't interact until the actual show. Like
Yep.
Brock and Randy Orton. Brock Lesnar was on Raw, Randy Orton was on SmackDown. Sure, you had Randy invade Raw and hit the RKO on Brock Lesnar, but that was
Yeah.
actually shocking. It wasn't
Yeah.
like nowadays where it was like, oh, well, watch. Randy's gonna go over to Raw, or they would announce beforehand, "Hey,
Yeah.
SmackDown's Randy Orton's coming to Raw," or something like that. No, it was unexpected.
Unexpected.
And it's like if you're feuding with people on other shows, unless you invade in like a segment or something, you don't see them until the pay per view. So I
That's
think
how
that helped.
it did. It helped so much. And I just felt like if WWE had that same format for now, it would make it so much better. But it's like you said, when Randy or RKO Brock Lesnar, which that feud I wish lasted longer. I wish it lasted longer. I really
Oh
did.
yeah,
They made it so short. I was just like, Randy Orton, you got two people that's crazy and that's psychopath, and put them both in the ring. Make an Extreme Rules match. Do something.
oh yeah, that'd be sick.
I just felt like they didn't really pull the trigger on that. They just slept on it. Do they regret it now? I think they pretty sure do. They regret it, but I just felt like that whole feud was crazy. Just see Randy Orton go to SmackDown just to RKO Brock. It was just wild.
Yeah,
I was just like, why is he on there? Like, and then you had everybody freaking, you had people kick, then he had to get kicked out. So it's just like that's how it's supposed to be. It's not like that no more. So that's why I say what I said.
yeah. Then we get to 2017. This was the year that Jinder Mahal won the WWE Championship.
Oh my gosh.
At least it was unexpected, but I don't think this
Yeah.
reign was really looked upon as the best reign of all time.
See,
But
see with that, Willie, see, it's like when I remember that day. Jinder Mahal went against Randy Orton in that Punjabi match, right? Hell in a Cell.
no, it was a regular match at Backlash, but then Jinder retained over Randy in Punjabi prison.
So those are two scenarios right there.
Mm-hmm.
Backlash, I'm sitting there hyped as hell. I'm like, you know what? I want Randy to win. I don't like Jinder Mahal because he's not good in the ring. It was a lot of botches that this man did. Could have hurt a lot of people. Nobody really didn't want to work with him. Randy was like, screw it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Backlash starts. So I'm like, okay. You know, I see their feud. Their feud, Jinder Mahal and Randy Orton feud was good. But Jinder Mahal was just cringy. He was cringy. He was just cringy with it. And
I
he
feel
wasn't
that.
he wasn't really fierce. He wasn't, you could just look at Jinder Mahal, oh, okay, all right. That's how everybody felt about him. Then it's like Backlash come, Randy Orton champion. Or yeah, Randy Orton won that, right? At Backlash.
No, Jinder won that Backlash.
When Jinder won that at Backlash, I was like, what's the point? I understand he's
Yeah.
trying to cater towards, the Indian fans and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just like, what the hell? What the hell? What's the point of that? So I'm like, all right, man. And you got Jim Hall talking this and that. Randy Orton's trying to fight off his little sideling, his little side people, his little two little short dudes.
The Singh brothers, I think
It was
they're
the
called.
same brothers. I was just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, I'm glad his reign didn't last long because nobody cared about it. And then even after that Punjabi match, I was mad as heck. Why would you do that? What's
The
the
great
point?
Khali coming back for a one-off in that
A
Punjabi
one
prison
off.
match.
A one-off. If they were gonna have General Hall a champion for that time, I'd rather have you might as well put General Hall in that stable. That would have been good. See,
Jinder Mahal and the great Khali would be a sick-ass team.
with the Singh brothers, it's like a bloodline, but like their own group. That would have been better. But no, they didn't want to do it one time. That's what made it more worse. I was like, okay, if he retains it, at least have Great Khali on his side or something. Have him join the group. It was a one-time thing, and then it ended. And then it was like, that's when General fell off after that point. I was like, I don't really want to be invested in this man no more.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
after those matches, you didn't really hear about him. So that was basically.
And a good thing that happened in 2017 was when they did the Superstar Shakeup, and Kevin Owens and the United States Championship moved over to SmackDown, and Kevin did the whole new Face of America gimmick with that U.S. belt. KO did absolutely sick with that. His feud with Jericho, I think, was good. Um, his feud with AJ, KO and AJ for the US belt. I mean, you had AJ win in a house show that US title. That was crazy because you never get that.
You don't. You don't ever. We don't ever get that. I remember like one time, like I went to a WWE event. It was like 2-3 years ago, and I got to see Kane go against John Cena. But I didn't really get to see a title change. And it's like you just said, backtracking to that is like you don't really get to see it a change
Mhm.
at a house show. You don't get to see a title change at a house show. They don't do that anymore. They do it on live on TV. And I feel like they should do it at house shows because that would be better, make it more fun. But when AJ Styles went against Kevin Owens, oh man, I loved it. I mean, I loved
Yeah,
it.
me too.
Kevin Owens is a goated up wrestler. Cody, how I explain it? Kevin Owens is a legend. Just as much as AJ Styles is, Kevin Owens is a legend because when it came down to it, he just always one of those wrestlers that's always gonna leave it out there. He'll take a lot of bumps. He
Yeah.
don't care. He's one of those people. He will take a lot of bumps. He have to. Same thing with AJ. Even with the feud between Kevin Owens and AJ Styles, AJ Styles is a good wrestler. No, hey, my bad. Kevin Owens and Jericho. Kevin Owens and Jericho's feud, I loved it. I was all in for it. I mean, they had a good match. Every time they went against each other, it was a good match. They came from being tag teams to being enemies, and that's the best way
Yeah.
WWE did it. WWE booked that very well, by the way. Like they were tag teams, and then Kevin Owens wanted more. Kevin Owens wanted the gold, and what did he do? Boom, kicked him.
Yeah.
And that had the feud. So I feel like Kevin Owens that's the thing. We talk about people that didn't really be relevant, but the fact that Kevin Owens is still relevant to this day during those days, hey,
Two-time
kudos.
WrestleMania main eventer. Kevin
Woo!
Owens, I think, was a massive MVP for SmackDown in 2017. Of course, he was on Raw in 2016, but then he moved in 2017. His feud with Shane McMahon, Kevin Owens' feud
Oh,
with Shane McMahon was absolutely goated in 2017. The one in 2019 sucked balls, but
it did. It did.
2017 2017 Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon, where Shane was a babyface, KO was heel. I think it was absolutely sick. And then Hell in a Cell 2017, you had Sami Zayn turn heel and help Kevin Owens beat Shane McMahon, and then that duo of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens that we get to this day as baby faces, but them as heels, they were absolutely great. I mean, and that was the group that put Daniel Bryan out of retirement to team with
Yeah,
Shane to take on Sami and KO.
that's
So
what made it. That's what made it so better though. It was like the fact that you had Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn as heels. They've been heels even during the indie days. So it's like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn been knew each other for years. They've been long time friends for a long, long time. So just them being heels, I loved it. Like Shane McMahon, I don't like Shane McMahon now. He shouldn't be wrestling at all right now. But
oh
like
yeah,
back
no,
then,
especially after WrestleMania.
oh man. But like back then, he held his own. Like that feud was crazy. Like, Shane McMahon was trying to basically say, you're not supposed to be here on WWE. Go back somewhere else. Go get out this company. Basically doubting them. And them being his heels, they were like, okay, we're gonna show you. So I just remember when Kevin Owens was just and Sami Zayn started beating up Shane McMahon, just beating him up, just making it hell for him basically anytime he's on the show. And they
Yeah.
always cause havoc. And they're like someone how Shield did, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn would just attack people just because. And I remember that, after that, that's what Daniel Bryan got a turn. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to stand for this anymore. I'm about to go be on Shane McMahon's team. And I feel like even though, if I'm correct, I think Shane McMahon and Daniel Bryan won that, right?
Yep.
So even though Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn lost and won it, lost that
Lost
match,
it. Yeah.
they were still over. They were still having hype because we already knew they wasn't gonna let them go, but they
Yeah, no,
had
they weren't gonna get fired or anything.
no, they would get fired. It's just like the segment of it was good. So I just felt like after that happened, they were still over because they just put on a 5-star match. And they're like,
Yeah.
what's gonna happen next? What's gonna happen next with them? And that's when they came back eventually. So
That's when
that
they
was
came over to Raw instead of going to SmackDown.
yeah.
But, I mean, w last point that I'll bring up for, this video was the brand exclusive pay-per-views that they did. Raw got this thing, SmackDown got the other thing. Backlash 2016, like we talked about, that was when we had our first SmackDown Women's and SmackDown Tag Team Champions. That was sick. That was where AJ also won the WWE Championship from Dean Ambrose. They had No Mercy as well. Um, they had Elimination Chamber where Bray Wyatt became the WWE champion. That Elimination Chamber match was probably one of my favorite of all time.
That was
Um,
it was amazing.
yeah, no, definitely. Uh, those are just a few that I could name off the top of my head, but I'll bet you there was more before they ultimately decided, "Hey, we're gonna merge the pay-per-views."
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I didn't mind the brand exclusive pay-per-views because then SmackDown had stories to work with. Because
Yeah.
when your brands get your own pay-per-views, that means that you actually have to build stories for those pay-per-views so you could build up cards and you don't have to rely all on title matches.
That's the best that's the best way to put it. Like I just felt like they had their own story. Raw had their own story. SmackDown had their own story. Raw had their own story. So
Yeah.
I just felt like with that Elimination Chamber match, backtracking in that, when Bray Wyatt won that, even though he was a heel, the fans were cheering for him because it was about time. That's when WWE pulled the trigger and was like, you know what, Bray Wyatt, we're gonna have Bray Wyatt be champ. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
And I just felt like he deserved to have a longer reign, man. Like, I don't know why they didn't do that. I know why, but it was like, why?
Probably bored of them.
Like, and it's just like the fans was never bored of Bray Wyatt. It's like every time Bray Wyatt got to a match with somebody, he
He
was
was
going to
over.
his gimmick was perfect. I like that gimmick better than the Fiend. The only reason why I like the Fiend a little bit is only because, his little tack and his little mask. But besides that, it was repetitive. But with that gimmick with 2017 Bray Wyatt, he was different because
Yeah.
it's like at that time, all those matches, all the way he taught, he had a supernatural gimmick. I wouldn't compare him to Undertaker, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? Back then, like even with that Raw, that episode, 1,000 episode, I think, when they had Undertaker, between when that's what LA Knight and Bray Wyatt had that feud, and Undertaker passed the torch to Bray Wyatt. So I feel like backtracking to 2017, I feel like a lot of people try to, give up on Bray. And I feel like Bray to this day still has a chance to get a huge push. He
If
do.
he
He
ever
still,
comes back, yeah.
if he ever comes back, it could be injury or it could be mental thing. If I highly believe with anybody that does like podcasts or YouTube, any wrestlers out there, your mental health is important. So if you
Yes.
feel like you're not mentally there, take a break because we've seen it happen a lot of times with wrestlers and people that do pod. They have mental thing when their mental's not there. Something just happened with them, they just spiral out of control. They do things they never would have did. So I just felt like I'm glad Bray Wyatt took a long break. I mean, he
Yeah.
just I'd rather have him take a long break than him sit here and run his brains out and just end up doing some crazy stuff. So I just felt like it could be a mental thing. I feel like as us wrestling fans, like me, you, last week of podcast, Wolf, a lot of people in the group chat, we know that wrestlers need breaks. We know that wrestlers need time to clear their mind. Your mental health is your most important thing. So I feel like
Facts.
when you're not in it anymore like that, that's why it's just half of these wrestlers. We talked about it yesterday. Like half of these wrestlers be going downhill because of that. So I just felt
Mhm.
like I believe like I could go on and on about it all day, Willie. But like make a long story short, like we never know what happens behind closed doors. You
Yeah,
know,
definitely.
look at Trinity. Look at Trinity, what she went through. Trinity was like mentally wasn't there back then, so here she are now. Impact, she's doing her thing. So I just feel like it's a mental thing. You know.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, guys, we thought we would go on here and give a few pointers on why SmackDown in 2016, 2017 was great. I wish that WWE would use the draft like they did back in the day where the rosters were split. You don't see the same people on different shows. You don't come up with these stupid excuses. Like the World Heavyweight Championship tournament, it's like, hey, here's people from Raw and people like
Man,
from SmackDown fighting for this Raw belt. And if the SmackDown person won, they get traded to Raw. And it's like, well, why the draft? It doesn't make sense. What else? What other pointers? Obviously, the titles being unified to in that whatsoever. Women's tag titles, I mean, we don't need them, but I mean, yeah. So I thought we would go on here and give a few pointers on how great SmackDown was back in the day, how great the entire WWE was in general
yeah,
in 2016. That was like Vince was still in control, yes, but I think all the producers back then had brains to be like, hey, if we did this, people
yeah.
would be invested, and they were. So, um, yeah, so yeah, that's been it for the video. This has been SmackDown in 2016. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, turn post notifications on. Subscribe to Dataway Show. I want to thank him for being
Of
on
course.
this stream. He just surpassed 110 subscribers
Yeah,
and counting, which is crazy.
yeah,
My man's on the grind. He does articles for Pro Wrestle News. So this is his first, full length appearance here on Willie Does Wrestling. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you for hopping on the Backlash review yesterday as well. Um, but yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, be sure to support the both of us. Shout out to Last Week in Wrestling. Shout out to
of
Wolf.
course.
Shout out to Pro Wrestle News as well. And yeah, um, there you go. You got a new follow.
I appreciate that. Shout out to him. one thing I want to say too is shout out to Willie Does Wrestling. Shout out to everybody in the group. Like I always say, man, support is very, very important. And I feel like
Definitely.
as us content creators that do wrestling, it happens all the time, man. Like in the wrestling community, people got big egos, but when it comes to us as a group, nobody's ever like that. We always down to support each other. Y'all know, go support my guy Willie Does Wrestling. He's grinding 24/7, just as like everybody is. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I hope and I would say I hope that the rest of the community gets like this, you know, to the point that everybody collab with each other. It's not about numbers or subs. It's just, hey, let's collab.
Yeah, it's
So
just like, "Hey, let's collab." If we get 0 views, it doesn't fucking matter.
yeah,
You know, it's just like, "Hey, we'll just do this video, shoot the shit. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad." But yeah, no, I mean, I had fun doing this.
of course.
Hopefully, we'll definitely collab more in the future. But yeah, so shout out to all those people. And like you said, yeah, the pro wrestling community needs to be more like this, where we all collab and you know, just support each other. And it's not like, hey, I got more subscribers, so
Yeah,
you know I'm better. No. But yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, turn post notifications on. I have been Willie Does Wrestling. That has been Dad Away Show, and I will see you in the next video. Be good.